Lesson 2. In our last session, we worked with the most basic of building blocks, the cylinder, the cube, and the sphere, and we combined them to create a very simple block out of our mannequin character. Today, we're going to take that foundation and start pushing it closer towards human form. If you look at the image that I've got just here behind me, you'll see an example of what we're aiming for, moving from those raw primitives into shapes that feel more natural and anatomically correct, whilst still keeping that mannequin aesthetic. By the end of this lesson, you'll have transformed your basic blockout into a more refined mannequin, a solid base that we can build upon in future chapters. So let's get going, shall we? In the last lesson, this is where we got to. And what we're going to do is we're going to get the torso and the hips, and we're going to add a modifier to it. So if I just open up our reference just here, this is a great little reference. We've sort of started with this step. This is where we are currently. We've got to block out a little bit more definition in the head. Well, that's fine, but you can see this is very simple. This is very simple. If we look at the torso, that doesn't look too much like a torso. It's got the right sort of definition, but what we want to do is remove some of these harder edges. We don't want to go too high with our topology, so you can notice up in the top left, I've got my statistics open. You can get that by coming up to show overlays, clicking the arrow and hitting statistics, okay? And that will just show you whichever bit of mesh that you're working on, what the current topology is. And you can see here, if I open this sphere, you can see that this sphere is made up, well, it'll be both of them because we've got a mirror of 512 faces. So turn on your statistics. Make sure you've got a reference to help you with this bit. Now I'm going to use this one because it's got the nice block out of a character just here. You can go and find your own images online. You've got one which is a little bit higher detail than what we're going for currently. And it's also got some nice sort of options down here. And this is probably more of what we're going for today, these two. So I'll leave them there so we can see what we're working with. And we're going to open up the modifiers. Now, this one has got a mirror modifier attached to it, which is fine. And you'll notice sometimes it says things like smooth by angle, and that's just because we've applied right click, we've smoothed out our mesh, and it will just add in this modifier as well. So don't worry about that. We'll work around this as we go. So we're going to get the torso. We're going to come to add modifiers and come down to subdivision surface modifier. Now, before we go into this, I'll explain what this is in just a second. I'd like to sort of see our topology a little bit clearer without having to come into edit mode. And what we can do is if you come up here to the top right and click on this little arrow in shading, and you want depth of field, cavity, and shadows on, and then with cavity, we've got screen. I believe this looks a bit different in 4.5, but you just want to make sure that both are selected. And for now, we're just going to bump these right up, and you can see what that does. It just adds a little bit of line definition, edge definition to our model, and this is going to be useful when we're using the sub D surface modifier. Okay, so we've applied that modifier. Now don't worry if it says smooth by angle, and to be fair, let's just get rid of it for now. And if we look at what it's done, it's taken, if I just turn this down to 0, it's taken our original geometry, which is very blocky, very rigid, okay, and it's just smoothed it out. And what it's done, if we go into edit mode, now in edit mode to start with, we'll be able to see our original mesh as a guide as what this was. If you want to see a rough idea of what the sub D surface modifier is going to do to your mesh once you apply it, you can come up to here where it says on cage and click that. And you can see it hasn't added the loop cuts and the extra geometry that this will inevitably add, but it gives you an idea of the shape that we're going for. Now you can try and manipulate that. You can come into vertice edge or face select mode and move these points around, okay? But sometimes it's nice to use these points and just have a look, because you can see this is what the mesh looked like. And I know for a fact that we're going to want to lower these bottom faces just here. We're going to want to lower them. And it's a little bit easier sometimes. If I just come here, you can see because they've got smaller, they're a little bit more realistic as to what they're going to be. It can be a bit harder for me to select them. It's okay in this case. So I like to keep on cage off just because I've got a little bit more of a surface area to aim for with my mouse when I'm selecting the faces I'd like to manipulate. What this does is it divides all of these mesh. So if you imagine, if I just turn this down, what it's actually doing, every time you add a level, it's going to be adding in more geometry, more loop cuts, every single place like this. Okay? Now I'll undo this in a second. That's basically what it's doing. Let me just undo that. But it's also smoothing out and adding like a bit more of a curved shape. So this is quite rigid here, quite sharp. So the sub D, if I turn that one on, you can see what it's done. It's just smoothing it out. You don't want to go too high with this, so when you're using the subdivision surface modifier, it's good rule of thumb to not really go above 5, or if you've got a really good PC, 6 levels, okay? If you want to, you apply it, and then you come back in and you can add another one, but it can bog your computer down if you start going too high with this. So keep it below 5. I'm just going to add 1 for now, because this is perfect. I'm going to turn that one off, and we're just going to create this little bit more. If I just zoom in, it's a little bit pixelated, but you get the idea. We're going to create this little bit more of an egg shape, this sort of rib cage shape, okay? And that's what we're going to go for. So let's do that. So let's select these ones. I'm going to go into front view. Now I'll turn my screencast keys on just so you can see what I'm doing, but I'm going to go a bit faster than we have in previous lessons, because you should by now know the controls of moving around, changing your view from with the numpad. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to use these now moving forward without saying out loud what I'm doing. If you are new to Blender and you'd like to go and learn how to move around your scene, how to navigate with your mouse, how to pan and orbit your mesh, I'll put a link up here to my previous lesson in the Blender Fundamentals course where I teach you just that, and it will get you going lovely jobly. So let's create this shape. So I'm going to front view. Now I'm going to scale these faces on the z-axis by 0, and that'll just flatten them out like so. And I'm just going to move it down a little bit, and I'm going to select these two sides just here, okay, and bring them down. I'm going to turn off proportional editing. I don't want it on right now. I just want to move these down individually, and that looks good. I might scale them on the X a little bit, just like so. And I think we just need to bring this edge loop, scale it out a little bit. So I'm going to go into edge select mode and hold Alt and left mouse button click on that edge to select the entire loop all the way around. Let's scale them on the X a little bit. That looks good. Now we'll turn my references back on. It's always good to keep using your references just to make sure you're not going too far from what it is we're trying to do. So I think maybe the shoulders could come out a little bit. We want them to almost match what our geometry is doing, our original mesh. So we want the tops of these to pop out a little bit. So let's do that. So select both of them. Make sure I'm in median point with my transform pivot point. Can't talk very well today. Let's scale them on the X. And that looks good. To make sure it's not gone. So you always want to move around your scene. You don't want to really spend too much time working in front view and just side view. You want to try and maneuver around what you're doing so you can see it from all angles. This will become more apparent when we're sculpting in a later lesson. If you stay in an orthographic view, okay, so I'm in front orthographic at the minute, you stay in an orthographic view and you do all your work, and then you look, sometimes it doesn't quite look how you thought it would. So you always want to be moving around and just checking. That looks good. I might move these forward just a smidge, just like so. And I think that looks good. We're not going to spend too much time here. We just wanted to create a bit more of a smoother torso. So we can apply this so you can see what's happening. Now, I'm just going to turn render to 1. I like to have both of these matching just so that I know that there's no anomalies, no artifacts going on. We don't need to change anything else in here. So you can either come up to the arrow and hit apply, or with your mouse in the modifier tab on the modifier you wish to apply, there is a shortcut and it's Control A, and it's apply modifier, as you can see. Now you can't do that with your mouse over here. It's got to be on the modifier, okay? And you can see we've done that. We've applied a sub D modifier. If I go into edit mode, that's now what it looks like. If I just undo this and click this little screen icon here where it says real time, if I turn that off, that's the geometry we had before, and it was 30 faces, which gets converted when we take this into a games engine and we export this as an FBX into 60 triangles. Because if you imagine, it will divide these up like so, all the way around. So let's just undo that. So let's turn that off. So from 60 triangles, it now goes to 240, and when I apply it, you can see that doesn't change, and we've now got well, 120 faces, which will get converted into 240 tries or triangles. So what is this? Well, we're building this character right now. We're going to be building it for absolutely anything. It could be for games, it could be for films, it could just be for a personal project. If you're building for games, it's quite important that you keep your try count as low as possible. And whilst we're blocking out at this initial stage, keeping it low just means that we're not going to bog our computer down, and it just makes our life a little bit easier should we need to come in and add a quick bit of deformation. So say I wanted to just move the shoulders. Let's just make sure X is like that. And I just wanted to move these over here. It's a lot easier to do this with some rather large faces than if this was, say, we subdivided it by, show you. It's easier with an example. If I just put that up to 4 and apply. Now you can imagine if I wanted to move these shoulders, it's quite difficult to, you can see what's going to happen, to move the mesh easily. So I'm just going to undo that. We don't want the subdivision surface to times 4. That's fine. So keeping it nice and low at this point in the development cycle just means that we can manipulate our mesh easier. So that's the torso done. Happy days. Let's do the hips. Now before I do it, we can still add, I'm going to remove this smooth by angle. You'll see what it does. This looks a bit weird. We can add a subdivision surface below the mirror. Let's do that. And it does what we want. Sometimes if you can get a bit of issues when you've got a mirror and it's in the center and it's clipping together, okay? Now this can make it very easy. You only have to do one part of work, so we are going to keep it on. But what you want to make sure is that your mirror modifier is above the subdivision surface modifier, not like this. It doesn't look like much has happened, but this can cause issues if your mirror modifier is below other modifiers, okay? So for now, you just want to make sure your mirror is at the top. Let's go into front view and let's just adjust this hip. You can see here with this character, this reference I've got, it's got a sphere in the center, very useful. You can see the top's a little bit higher and narrower than the bottom, but currently we've got this odd shape just here. So that's what we're going for, something like that. And you can see here at the back, it's a little bit funky. It's not quite acting how I want. So before adding and maneuvering any more of this geometry, I'm going to add a couple of edge loops. We're going to add one around the middle here, okay? And I'm going to add one in the middle here. Now that's just going to mean we've got a bit of a flatter surface. It's going to make our life a bit easier. The hips are quite a weird shape, okay? This will just help us out. So let's try and match this. Let's see if we can get this going. And you can see the back of this hip mesh sort of goes flat to a point, but in front we've got this shape where the groin comes around, and we're going to try and mirror that, okay? So let's do the top first. Let's start with these two. I'm going to go into front view, and I'm just going to move them up. Doesn't have to be perfect, not yet. I'm going to come into side view, and you can see because we've got lots of mesh all over the place, it can be quite hard to just have a look at what's happening. So I'm just going to come out of edit mode. And we're going to keep this reference, hold shift, this reference. We're working on the hips, we're working with the abdomen, and we're also going to need these as well. We're going to be working with these joints. And I might even keep the upper leg. Now what I want to do is focus on all the selected mesh and remove the rest. And we can do that by hitting / on our keypad. There we go. It's just removed the mesh that we're not working on. And now if I come into side view, you can see I've got a bit of a better view. It's a little bit easier for us to work on the bits we're working on. Cool. So what does this look like? I think we need to bring this bit and this bit. Yeah, let's just go for those two first. We need to bring them forward a little bit. So I'm move them along the Y. Them up a little bit. What's the back looking like? So the back looks like it's a bit higher than it is at the front. So let's do that. I'm going to hold Control and press 1 on my numpad, and that will just take me to rear view. So I'm in back orthographic by holding Control. Okay, let's bring that up, and I think this is a little bit higher. So I'm going to scale these two selected faces on the Z by 0, and that'll flatten them out. Look at that. Just moving around, having a look. I think the sides are a little bit wide. We'll fix that in a second. Now, one thing I am going to do, if we look from side view, we can see that our original geometry is a little bit skew if we've got vertices sort of sticking out. And I think it's going to be a bit nicer for us if we just take all of these faces on the front, scale them on the Y by 0, and that'll flatten them out. And then we can just bring that out a little bit. With the groin, we want to bring that one down. So about there. That looks good. Now we added this edge loop all the way around the middle. And the reason we did that is so that we can create a bit more of a defined groin area whilst trying to flatten out the back. Because if we didn't have this edge loop, these faces underneath would act as one solid face. But because we've now got a face on the back and a face on the front, we can just ensure that it's not all being manipulated. So we want to try and flatten out the buttocks a little bit. I'm just going to remove the reference. It's in my way a little bit. Let's scale that on the Z by 0 and then rotate. Looking good. Let's sort out these rather square sides, shall we? So I'm going to do this in vertices select mode. Dependent on what your mesh looks like, you're just going to have to sort of try and eyeball the effect you're going for and just have a play. Don't rely on how I'm doing it, my values, okay? You need to try and have a look at your mesh and what's happening and just make it work. Looks like it could be good. Oh, do I need to add an edge loop just here? I think I do, so I've just added another one. I'm going to come into front view. Okay, so now the legs are in the way, so I'm not going to come out of this view, but I am going to select the legs and press H to hide. And you know what, this time I am going to turn on cage on, and I'm going to select these three verts, turn on cage off, come to front view, just bring that one up, like so. I'm going to bring the legs back, come out of edit mode by pressing Alt and H. There we go. Now I think we need a bit more of a definition here, so I'm just going to click these two, slide them up by pressing double G, to about there. Let's match with this one. So I'm just sliding the vertices along the edges by pressing G twice. And select all four of them by holding Control. Bring them forward. Looks good. That one now needs to go back a little bit, as does this one. I think this one is in the wrong place completely. If you look at the hips, they've got this bit that sort of sticks out. That's a bit too far, but we'll sort of mirror that. We'll sort of match that, marry that up. That will do us. So we're not trying to create realistic muscular structure. We're just trying to get the shape roughly in the right place so that when we do come back to this at a later date, we can start sculpting it and it's roughly in the right shape. So that'll do for now. I'm going to go back into out of focus view by pressing / on the keyboard. And already this is looking much better than we did before. Let's do the next. So I'm going to bring this sphere up to the center, like so. Go into edit mode. Let's rotate it on the Y by 90 because I want this circle on each side to be on the top and the bottom. So rotate on the Y by 90. Now once again, I'm going to focus the head, the neck, and the torso. / that'll do. And what we want to do is if we look at the neck, so I'll come up here to this character, it's a nice little showcase. It's a little bit thinner at the top and it tapers out towards the bottom. So we can stay with the sphere shape like we did with the legs and the arms, and we can stretch the top and the bottom out of this sphere. So let's go into wireframe, make sure in vertices select mode, and I'm going to select halfway down. So we've got the center line as well. Let's bring that down so it's about there, and let's scale that. Let's come out of wireframe and see what that looks like. Now I'm going to come back out of the focus mode and I'd like to look at my references because we're going to need to look at the reference of the neck here, I think, quite a bit. I'm just going to rotate that. And what we'll do later is we'll join this mesh together and we'll sculpt in the muscular detail. So like I said just a minute ago, we're not going for realism, we are just going for a base shape. Into wireframe, let's select all of them. Out of wireframe, let's bring them forward, let's rotate them a little bit. Scale them a little bit. Go into front view so we're checking both references and move them up. Might be tempted to even just keep a little rotation there. And now we've got a bit of a neck. That looks much better than just a floating head, doesn't it? So let's turn our references off. Cool, so now we've done the hips, the torso, and the neck. What we're going to do is I'm going to introduce you to parents and children. Now, the easiest way to think of this is a parent is the owning mesh and the child belongs to that parent. And this is just useful for when we're manipulating our mesh and posing it. Now, you could rig this character with a simple rig, and we'll go into rigging and animating in a later lesson. But I didn't want to spend time rigging this character because we're going to be sculpting and deforming all this in the next couple of lessons when we get into the anatomy studies. Okay? So introducing you to parent and children will just mean that we can move this and help us when it comes to sculpting. So parenting, if I take this hand and shift select the wrist, okay, you can now see that both of these are selected and the wrist is the active mesh, okay? If I press Control and P, this brings up the set parent menu and we've got a few options just here and we're going to want to select Object, Keep, Transform. And now, if I just click away and click back on just the wrist and press R to rotate, you can see that I'm rotating the wrist, but because the hand is a child now of the wrist, it moves relevant, so we're keeping the transform of the hand to the wrist. If I now select the wrist and shift select the lower arm and press Control and P, Object, Keep Transform, click away, and now if I just click on this arm, the lower arm, and R to rotate, it's going to rotate around this origin point, but that's absolutely fine. You can see that the wrist, which is a child of the arm, moves with the arm, and the hand, which is a child of the wrist, moves with the wrist. So now all three bits move with just one selected. And we can do that for the whole arm. So I'm going to shift select the elbow, Control P, keep transform, elbow to upper arm, Control P, Object, keep transform, upper arm to shoulder, Control P, object, keep transform. Now, if I move just the hand, it moves on its own. If I move the wrist, it moves the hand. If I move the lower arm, it moves the lower portion of this arm. Elbow, okay, trying to fly. Upper arm, and the one we want is shoulder, and that moves the entire arm. So for the legs, which is what we're going to do next, this is going to be a bit of a challenge for you. So I want you to take the foot and parent it to the ankle to the leg, lower, the lower leg to the knee to the upper leg, and the upper leg to the hip joint. Okay, and as you can see, I've got all mine parented. I'll explain that in just a second. But in this challenge, I want it to behave like this for you. A quick note as well. If you find, if I just move the origin to the cursor, which is at the world origin, all right? So if I just set origin by right clicking, origin to 3D cursor. Now, if you find once you've parented your mesh together, when you hit rotate, it's doing something like that. You can see that basically, if I come up to transform pivot points, I've got mine set to active element, but even median point or even individual origin, when we rotate it, it acts strange. And that's because the rotation is being applied to this origin just here. So for this part, you want the origin to be in the center of the joints, like you can see just here, and my hip is now down here. If you find that your origin is in a strange place and you want to bring it back, just right click on the mesh that you wish to re-center the origin on, come to set origin and come down to origin to center of mass. And you can choose either of these. I like volume. And you can see that brings the origin to the center of this mass. And now when I rotate with everything parented correctly, you can see it's acting like it should. So there's your challenge. Parent the foot up to the hip joint. You can, if you want to, also parent the hip joint to the hip. So let's do that. Control P, object to transform. And now if we move that hip, that's just acting weird because I'm mirroring around it. So don't worry about that for now. But you can see the hip now brings all the legs with it. But if I select just the hip joint, we have a ballerina or a bit of a dancer. Okay, so there's your challenge. Get yourself off, have a bit of a practice, and see what you come up with. So welcome back. Hopefully you didn't find that too difficult. If you did, don't worry about it. That's what I'm here for. So all you want to do is click on your first piece of mesh, which in our case is the feet, and then parent it to the ankle bone. So shift and select. So we've got two selected, and the lighter colored one is the active. Control P, object, keep transform, and then do the same thing up. I like to click away and then reselect the mesh so we don't end up with some funkiness going on. So Control P, click away this one to this one, Control P, click away this one to this one, Control P, and you've got it for the last one, Control P. There we go. And we can test that now just by coming to our joints and giving them a quick rotate. Maybe we come to front view, side view, sorry. And there we go. And the reason we've done that instead of making a rig is because when we get to sculpting, and if we've got a rig attached, it's going to just act weird. It'll throw some errors. But right now, what we can do is if we wanted to, say, put our character into the T-pose and focus on sculpting maybe some muscles underneath here and doing a bit of an anatomy study, it's a little bit easier. I can even just come in here if I wanted to, and we could pose him however we want to. So now undo that. So that's children and parents, and they are very, very useful. It's good to learn what parents and children are good for within Blender. It's also very good if you're moving into games engines to just have a rudimentary understanding of how parents and children work. And in theory, if you looked in your hierarchy, all of these pieces of mesh are children of this collection. And you can also see when we do this, it nests all of the mesh in its lead parent. So if I look at hip joints, okay, you can see them. If I go to shoulders, you can see they're selected. If I now click this little arrow next to shoulders and open it up, you can see the upper arm is a child of the shoulders. The elbow joints is a child of the upper arm. The lower arm is a child of the elbow joints. And the wrist joints and the hands. You can see how the hierarchy places these, okay? You can still come in here and select them, and they are separate. They're not joined together. We haven't used Control and J in edit mode, and that's a good point to go from. Now, before we end this lesson, we could just keep these paddle hands, but I think it will be wise for us to, let's block out some hands. So what you're going to want to do for the hands is firstly get a reference, and I don't think our reference is going to be good enough. We've got this hand just here. We've got a few others. We did originally say we were going to keep it as a simple paddle, but I think it'd be good at this point just to block out the hands so they've got a bit more detail. We've got some fingers, a thumb, and a sort of a similar shape to the hands. We don't have a reference here that we can use, so let's pop on over to the interweb and have a look. This is the sort of reference that you want. And what you're going to want to do is take this into Photoshop, or if you're like me, when you're on a bit of a budget, take it into Paint, okay? And you're just going to want to block out the shapes. And what I mean by that is just rough out the shape of the hand. So section it off. So I'm doing the palm here first. Keep that one straight. Okay. So just very, very simple. And then you know what? I'll fill that in with a lighter color. And we're going to want to do the same for the fingers. So I'm just using Paint because it's free. Everyone's got Paint, unless you're a Mac user. I don't know if Macs have got Paint. Let me know in the comments if Macs have Paint. I haven't used it. And I am going to just put a darker colour through the knuckles areas. So where the knuckles are of the fingers, we're just going to cross it off. It's going to be 3 individual parts of our block out. So to show you that, we'll have the tip, the middle, and the base. Okay, let's choose a different colour. Let's do this finger. So the ring finger, the one that I'm doing currently, and the index finger, statistically they are the same size, okay? So it looks, you can see they're roughly the same size. The pinky is obviously smaller and the middle finger is obviously longer. So I'm going to keep these two as the same size. Once again, just put a cross section across where the knuckles go, and this will just help us later on. Come down and do a yellow for the thumb. And there we go. Now, I'm just going to turn this one off. You'll see, if I just get another layer going, turn that one on. Okay, with the hand, the knuckles, the top of the hand, sort of come like this, whereas the bottom of the hand is a little bit further forward. It's a little bit further in this direction, okay? And you want to sort of match that. So when you do this part of the hand, however you do it, let's do that. Let's do it very, very quick. Let's just fill this in. So this bit here is going to be a little bit darker just to signify that it's shaded. And we want this edge, the bottom edge, to be further than the top edge, okay? And if I just take that one off, We can even just add it to our original block out. There we go, that'll do. So we've got the higher knuckle line just here. This is where the joint of the knuckles, when we sculpt the hands, this is where the rotation of our rig's going to be, and we'll need this later, so I'll leave this for now, but the palm itself actually extends this far. So we're just going to want to save that, so save it as a PNG, and that'll do. So now we've got our reference offline, we've edited it in our just Paint or something simple like Photoshop. Now what we're going to want to do is just hide our mannequin for now, create a new collection and call it hand block out, come to top view, and we're going to want to bring in that image. So there we go, there it is. And that'll do, we don't need to shrink it down for now, we'll work at this size. And to make the hands, we're going to start off with some planes. Now you can use cubes if you want, but I'm going to start with a plane. Now before we get going with this, I am just going to click on the image, come down to data properties for the image, come down to opacity just here, click this little tick and just turn the opacity down just so that the image doesn't overpower our scene. Perfect. Let's bring in a plane, so we can either come up to add mesh plane. You can also press Shift and A. Okay, and we're just going to want to deform this plane so that it matches up with the base of the hand. So into edit mode, go into vertices select, and let's just move it to the exterior, like so. And I'll do that. And then with these, we're going to want to extrude. So I'll do that, bring this one up, and that'll do us. Now, for the width of the hand, this is a simple block out. So in edit mode, go to face select, select everything by pressing A. Let me just get my screencast keys going, just so you can see what buttons I push. Select everything, press E to extrude. It'll extrude it along the normals, or you can just constrain it to the Z and bring that one up. And that'll do. Now what we want to do is go to edge select, select this edge and this edge, come up to top view and just bring these back. Now I am going to go into wireframe mode by pressing Shift and Z, or Z for my American friends, and just line this top edge up with the edge that we drew out. And it is a block out, so you can just be nice and rough. I might even move that one a little bit. There we go. Okay, and outer wireframe, and that's the sort of shape that we want to go for our palm. So our thumb's going to come off this direction, and we'll come onto the thumb last. Let's do the fingers first. So back to top view. Let's create another plane. Let's bring it up here. Let's scale that down. We can apply transform later on. Into edit mode, let's give that a rotate. We'll start with the pinky. So let's bring this one down. Like so. And I'll tell you what, we'll go to face select, select the whole face, duplicate it in edit mode. And then we'll edit all of these together and then we'll separate them into separate pieces. It's a bit quicker. No need to dilly-dally. Into face select, let's select this face, duplicate. Into vertices select, put these roughly into the right place. Like so. Okay, now let's select everything. Let's extrude it. Let's go to side view and let's extrude up. Okay. And it's not going to be the full height of the palm, so that should do us absolutely fine. And now what we want to do is go back into edit mode. We've got all of this selected by pressing A. If we press P, okay, it's going to say separate. And then we can go by loose parts. And now we've got, if we go back into object mode, we've got 1, 2, 3 parts of our finger. And we want to do the same for these fingers. So let's do that together. We'll start off with a mesh. We'll bring it over into edit mode. Let's scale it down. And let's put it into the right place. And you can see I am just being extremely rough with this. Back into face select, give it a duplicate, give it a duplicate, okay, let's do 2 at a time. And then bring these in. Now I am aligning these vertices, so this one and this one, and this one and this one, roughly, so they're in the same location. We're not going to worry about the nails now. Okay, and now we're going to select everything by pressing All or A. and extrude up. Now, you know what? I'm just going to undo that and come into side view. And let's extrude it all up to see the same height as the other finger. There we go, perfect. That'll do. Selecting everything by pressing pressing P, sorry, and then loose parts. And then into object mode, we can just check that they've all come out as their own individual pieces. Okay, so now we need to do the middle finger. So let's Shift and A, mesh, plane, bring it up into edit mode, scale it down with S. Let's bring that one down. Let's move the verts. You can see once you get comfortable with the shortcuts in Blender, you can move quite efficiently, quite effectively, quite fast. This is what you want to do with your blocking out. You don't want to spend too much time in this phase with detail. There we go, there's the middle finger done. So select everything, come into side view, and extrude it up. Select everything by pressing A, hit P on your keyboard, and buy loose parts. And then let's do the index finger. So we'll start with the plane, bring it over into edit mode, scale it down. We know the drill by now. Let's grab the verts, put them into place. Select everything, duplicate, grab the verts, and give them a move. And let's do the tippy tip. Grab the vert, bring it down, and this one down, and this one in. Select everything with O or A, extrude it up, into side view, just make sure that's right. There we go. And we're going to do the same for the thumb. So let's bring it in a plane, move it over into edit mode, scale it down, give it a move, grab your first one and place it where you want it. It's not difficult, guys, okay? Bring that one up. Now, with this one, we've got a bit of a tippy tip. And you know what? I'm just going to bring that one up, add a loop cut just here, slide it up, grab this vert and do this. There we go. Select everything with A, into side view, extrude it up, and there we go. So you can see very quickly we've just roughed out a hand, although it is extremely blocky. And in this lesson, if I just bring back our block out, excuse the scale at the second, we'll sort that out. We have just smoothed everything out. So I think it would be a good practice just to get all this looking smooth as well. So let's just hide the block out. And we've done it, we did this at the beginning of the lesson. We can do it again. So let's add a subdivision surface modifier. However, before we do that, we've been scaling, moving, and shoving things around. And it's always wise just to check your scale, okay? Now, I do have a uniform scale, so the subdivision surface modifier would probably work absolutely fine. Although, if you remember back to a previous lesson, I said it's always best practice to make sure that your scale is set to 1. So I'm just going to select everything that we've just done, and we can do this in here in the hand block out by coming to the top one, pressing shift, come down to the bottom one and clicking, and that'll select everything in between. If you've got other things in the same folder, you can just control and select everything. Okay, I'm going to select everything with shift, and we want to apply the transforms. So we can come to object, apply, scale, or we can use control A, scale, and you'll notice now our scale on everything we just had selected is set to 1. And that's just best practice. Oh, I can see here that the thumb and the index finger haven't been separated. So let's do that at the same time. Let's click the thumb and the index, go into edit mode with both of those selected, press A for everything, and then press P for separate, and then buy loose parts. Now we can see they are on their locum. Awesome. So now we've got all the transforms set, and let's just check that these ones are all okay. Yep, that's good. So we'll start with the palm. Let's come in here and add a generate and a subdivision surface or a sub D modifier. goes proper weird. So we just need to go into edit mode now and add a few loop cuts just to flesh this out. So we'll add one around the center, okay? And we'll add one at the back and slide that one back for the wrist. We'll add one just here and slide that over. I'm not going right up to the edge. I'm just bringing them over like maybe that much. So just that little smidge in. And potentially we'll need one just here as well. And now I might just maneuver these two verts by pressing double G and sliding them along those edges. Now, looking at this central line, if I go to edge select, this one just here, I can press Alt and left mouse button click and that will select the entire loop. I don't think one's enough. Let's add a bevel to this single loop by pressing Control and B. And there we go, that's what I wanted. And let's just have a look at our magic. That looks a bit better, it's less rigid. And now we want to just add a subdivision surface to all of these. Before we do that, we're going to click on all of the tips, the fingertips. We'll leave the thumb for now and go into edit mode. And if you just look at your finger, this edge here on all of your fingers, it's back a little bit, but it's actually a bit more curved. So we'll add a bevel. So I've got those four selected. Bevel them. And then before I set that in place, I'm going to mouse wheel up once, just so we add another edge loop just here, okay, on all of the fingers. And then we have now got some n-gons, and if you can't remember what an n-gon is, it is a face with more than four sides or four edges, okay, and we don't want that. So we're going to select 1, 2, 3, we need to add one in the middle, press J with these two selected, and now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 edges connecting this face, making this a quad. Even though it looks more like a triangle, it is a quad, and we've got another one just here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we want to do that for all of these bevels that we've just done. So come into the middle one, come up to the corner one, press J to join, or vertex connect path. I like to think of it as just being joined. We do that for all of them. And this is different to pressing F. If I just press F now, it looks like we've done the same sort of thing. But if I come into face select mode and now click this top quad here, you'll notice the whole thing gets selected. And if I select this edge is actually, as you can see when I move it away, its own independent edge. And we don't want that. So I'm just going to undo that. And that's the difference between joining two faces and filling the faces. Okay, so press J. And now if I select this quad up here, you can see they are two individual entities, all on their own sum. They're not joined up. Same for there. So let's continue. Let's join these up. Join these up. Okay. Move across this one to this one. And this one to this one. The thumb, we have already added this sort of chamfer in, and that will do for now. Let's start adding some sub-D surfaces and see what this looks like. So we'll select all of our fingertips and middles and bases. We'll select our thumb tip and our thumb middle. Come to Add Modifier, Generate and Subdivision Surface. It only does one, but with everything selected, we can now press Ctrl and L, and that's going to offer our Link Transfer Data menu, and we can come down here to where it says Copy Modifiers. And now they've all got that same modifier on them. And now we just need to come into all of these and add in some loop cuts just to add a little bit more fingertip definition. So let's do this one. We definitely need one in the middle and then maybe bring that up. So the top, this face, is going to be wider in every dimension than the bottom face. And you know what? I'm just going to remove the reference. Let's name that ref hand. We don't need that at the moment, so let's just hide it. So what I mean by that is if we look from a bottom view by pressing Ctrl and 7 on our numpad, the face that I've got selected, if I scale that on the X, is going to be narrower than the one at the top. So we want to do that for all of the fingers. We also want to make it a little bit more squared. It's a little bit circular. We don't want that. So let's just bring a line there, an edge loop there. Let's add one there. And you know what? I'm going to just bring this one back by pressing double G. Same for this one. We'll see why I'm doing that in a second. And we want to do that for all of the fingers. So let's go ahead and do it. Underneath, select these two, slide. For the tips, because we've added that bevel, they look a little bit different, so let's see what we can work with here. We're definitely going to want to bring in an edge loop around the middle, but you can see here it's not quite doing what I want because we've created this line just here. So let's add one this way to start with. I think we're going to want two, and I'm going to want to slide these just along a little bit by pressing G twice. And I think if we add an edge loop here and bring that one back, that should do the job. It's quite chunky, so maybe we want to scale these edges. If I come up to top view, press G twice, we just want to bring them in. Same here. So I just clicked on one, clicked up here and pressed Control and clicked all, and it selected all of these faces. Double G on top, bring it in. So that's the method for the fingers for the block out. So see if you can go ahead and do it now on your own. Do the rest of the hands and we'll do a thumb together. I'm going to do a little time lapse here of me doing the other fingers because you don't need to watch me do all of them. You've just watched me do it with these three. So the base, the middle and the tip. So go ahead, see if you can do it yourself and I'll do a little time lapse here whilst I add in all the extra loops. Okay, so I've done all of the fingers. Hopefully, hopefully you've got something that looks similar to what I have here. Now we're going to do the thumb now together. So into edit mode, we'll start with the base of the thumb, or the middle technically. The base is part of the palm. And it's just the same sort of thing. So adding loop cuts, we're trying to create the shape. And if you need a good reference, look at your hand. Your hand, you've got all the best references, or you hopefully you've got the best reference possible with you. I can imagine it'd be quite difficult to do Blender without a hand. So have a look. If you don't have a hand, go have a look online. We've got a nice reference earlier. You can go have a look. It's not too dissimilar to the fingers. It's just a different rotation. These faces here, okay, are technically the same as the bottom faces to a hand. It's just a little bit sideways compared to the fingers. But that'll do us for now. Into top view, let's do the tippy tip. Let's just bring that one down. I think we're looking pretty good. There's that one in the center there. That'll do us. Potentially we do need to just move these ones so into top view. Now I don't want to move on the X because that's going to make it skew with, so I'm just going to freehand this and bring it over. I'm going to bring these two in a little bit because there is a little bit of a dink to the thumb. There we go. And that's pretty much the hand blocked out, but as we did with, let's have a look again at the block out. For all of the joints we added these spheres. And we're going to do the same thing for the hand. So I'm just going to hide this dude, back to top view. What we're going to do for the hand joints instead of spheres is we're going to add mesh cylinders. Because if you bend your fingers, they've only got 1 degree of rotation. Okay, so if I just rotated that the wrong way, if I just scale this and press Shift and S with scale selected, Shift and X, sorry, it'll scale it on the Z and the Y, but not on the X axis. And if you think about it, a finger can only bend like that, if that makes sense. It can't go this way, or it shouldn't do. You can force it, but it shouldn't. So we'll use cylinders for the joints of the hand. I'm going to bring this one over. I will just scale that down, scale it right down. And we're just going to place this in between all of the parts of the hand. So just here, give that a rotate into side view. And you can alternate between left and right by pressing 3 on your numpad to come to right orthographic, or pressing Control and 3 to go to left orthographic. You can also press 6 or 4 on your numpad and you'll shift around, which is quite useful. And let's bring that up on the Z. You can see the power of orthographic view just here. Back to top view. Let's give that a bit of a rotate. Let's bring it over. Now I'm going to make sure I don't apply the rotation here. You can see my rotation has got 120 degrees on the Z axis and 90 degrees on the X. And we're just going to bring this. So we're going to want to duplicate this. If I press Shift and D, we've got two. Now what I can do, because I've got my rotation up here hasn't been set, my transform hasn't been set, I can constrain this to the X, but if I press X again, it's going to be the local X, and that's what it does. If you constrain things to a axes and you double press the X, the Y, or the Z, it will just constrain it to the local axes. So global means it's the same as these axes just here and up here. And if I press G to grab on the X, that's global. If I press X twice, that's local. So this has been rotated on the X by 90. If I just rotate it a little bit more and then press G and X twice, you can see there is a little bit of a difference there. If I rotate it, say like this, let's grab it on the X twice, you can see that's now the local axes. It's very powerful. Now I'm just going to move this into the center and just rotate that roughly into the right spot. That's good. I think we need to scale this. Is it the Z? Yeah, we go. Scale it on the Z. And now I wanted to shrink this, but I don't want the Z axis to be affected. So I'm going to scale, okay? And I'm going to press Shift and Z twice and then we can scale it on the local axes. Bring it up. That's going to be the knuckle. And that's perfect. Maybe need to rotate it a little bit. And then we're going to duplicate, double press X, bring it across. Scale this, Shift and Z twice, so I can scale it down. And scale this, Z twice. There we go. Bring that up on the Z. That one needs to come up a little bit, I think. That's absolutely fine. There we go. Doesn't matter, it's a little bit off. This is a block out. And now we want to do the same for the other fingers. So I'll do one more with you. So I'm going to take this one and duplicate it over here. And rotate it so it's roughly in the right direction. We want to sort of follow the direction of the finger. I'll do Shift D on the X twice. It's a little bit off center, but it's okay. It doesn't matter. Scale that one down. Shift and D, bring that one up. Scale it down on the local X and Y. Bring it up a little bit. And we need to scale it inwards a little bit, so I believe that's the X. Nope. It's the Z. There we go. I'll do. That one needs to move over on the Z a little bit. The local Z, that is. Scale it on the local Z. Oh, we're getting somewhere. So let's do this one. Duplicate. In fact, I'm going to take this one and duplicate it. I'm going to rotate it a little bit. Take this one and bring it over. We're going to rotate it a bit. And this should be in the right height. Yep, that is good. And then let's do the last one. Let's duplicate this one. This one. Just little incremental changes just to make it all work. And this one, let's duplicate. Shift and D, not Alt and D. So they are all going to be slightly different. There we go. And now we want to do the thumb. Now for the thumb, we will use a sphere for the base. So UV sphere. Make sure your segments are quite low, so 16 and 16 is fine. I'm going to rotate it on the Y by 90. Go into edit mode. Let's scale that down and bring it over so we can see what we're doing. Now this one we want to bring up, and we want to just rotate this. I like to keep these points acting as the rotational axis. So if you imagine the cylinder is going to rotate around the flat edges. So if I just parent these two together, Control P, keep transform. Okay, if I now rotate that on its global X, we want the rotations to sort of look correct. And the reason we're using a sphere for the thumb is firstly the palm. If you look at your hand or you look at a reference of the hand, the thumb's base is actually inside of the hand, and you've got quite a meaty part to the palm here, and that's what this sphere is going to act like. So we're just going to bring that back. Now the origin's moved, so I'm just going to bring the origin to the center of mass, volume. And I want to just line that up, and that looks like it could be quite good. Now the thumb itself doesn't sit level with the hand, so you want to just grab both your thumb bits and bring them down. I'm on a side view, give them a rotate. So I'm rotating around this origin because I have got individual origins selected. If I come to active element and make sure that this one is selected, it'll do the same thing. So let's just move the origin into its center of mass. And let's now rotate that. There we go, that'll work. And we want to sort of just add this like so. We'll come back to top view. Let's give that a slight adjustment. And this will all sort of be sculpted together in a later date here, but for now that'll work. Into side view, bring that up a little bit, and I think this is a bit big actually, so we'll just scale that down a little bit. Just top view, bring that back. They want to be touching. There we go. And we'll add another cylinder for this part of the thumb. And if you just flex your thumb, okay, and notice how it moves, relax your hand and just bend the tip of your thumb. And you'll see that this one here, if I just bring the origin, let's put the origin where I want it. So I'd like it to be, if I select that edge, Shift and S, cursor to selected, that'll put the cursor in the middle of that edge. And if I come back out of edit mode into object mode and now set my origin to 3D cursor, puts the origin just there. It's very powerful that way. The thumb moves like this, okay? So we're going to want to have a cylinder. Let's use this one. Let's duplicate it over here. I'm going to just clear out the rotations for a sec by zeroing them out. That looks like it could be right, but let's come to front view. Let's bring it down. It might have been a bit easier to have done this with the thumb flat, but never mind, we are where we are. I'm going to press Control and 1. We just want to rotate that a little bit. Into side view, we definitely want to rotate that a little bit. Let's bring it down. Now, we need to know which way to scale it now because it's a little bit wide. So if I press S to scale, and it's Z, so we press it twice, so we're scaling on the Z axis, and that looks good. Back to top view, and that will act as a knuckle, so we'll put it just here. Into side view, and we just need to incrementally just add little adjustments just so it looks good. I'm just flipping between views, you can see what I'm doing. And that looks good. So as we did with the blockouts, we now want to parent everything. And it's a bit of a challenge for you, so see if you can go away and do it. Once again, you want to work from the tip of each finger down to this joint, from the tip of your thumb down to this joint. And I'd also like you to parent these knuckle joints to the palm and this thumb joint to the palm. So see if you can do that yourself. If not, hang around and we'll do it together. Right, let's do it together, shall we? So get the tip. So select this one, then this one by holding Shift, Control and P. Keep transform. If you remember earlier, I let you know about the Shift and R for repeating. Okay, so we've just parented this tip to the joint. We now want to parent this joint to the middle. Press Shift and R, and it just repeats, make parent, because that was the last operation that we did. This one to this one, Shift and R. It's just a little bit faster. If I do that extremely fast, and now we can test that out. So if I come to the side, we'll come to a joint just here, rotate it on its local Z, and you can see that's now acting a lot like a finger, which is ideal. And let's try this one. Perfect. So I'm going to do that for all of the fingers. Control P, set parent to object, keeping the transform. This one to this one, repeat. This one to this one, repeat. This one to this one, Shift and R, repeat. This one to this one, Shift and R, repeat. This one to this one, Shift and R. This one to this one, Shift and R. This one. If you keep an eye on my hierarchy, you'll see as I parent everything, it gets smaller because it's nesting all of the parents and children together. Now, did I parent these two? Yes. So it's this one to this one. Control P. This one to this one, Shift and R to repeat. This one to this one, repeat. This one to this one, repeat. You can see how fast I did that then, just using Shift and R to repeat the last operation. We can now test everything. That looks good. That looks good. That looks good. So now we want to take this one, this one, this one, and this one, and then this one, and press Control P, and keep transform. And now if I grab the palm, we should see that all those fingers come with. Perfect. So last but not least, thumb to thumb joint, Control P, object keep transform, this one to this one, repeat with Shift and R, this one to this one, Shift and R, this one to this one, Shift and R, to repeat. Very repetitive. And now if I push the palm, in theory, we should have done that correctly. Everything should move together. Look at that. So we've got a blocked out hand. Another really good benefit of children and parents. If I just change this to hand, okay? If I scale just the palm, watch all the fingers. They also scale with the palm, which is very useful because they are children of the parents. So it scales all of them together. And we're going to want to do that in a second. So let's bring back our block out. And remember what I said, that the bottom here, the palm of our character, is longer than the top where our knuckles are going to sit eventually. So we need to remember that when we're placing this. Let's come into front view. And let's just give this a rotate on the X by 90. So we can see that that's the palm there, and here's the knuckles. So we've got the top of the hand facing us, a bit like our reference was. So it looks like this. So we're going to want to rotate 180. And now we're going to want to place it up here. So we're going to want to get rid of our paddles, our flippers. So press delete on those to delete. You can also press X and delete if you like the extra step, just to make sure that you are doing something like that you want to. So where should we place this? Is it going to be this side? So now we have to think about which side to place this hand on. The character's right side or the character's left side. Now have a think and just see where you would put it. In fact, I'll set this as a challenge. Go and place the hands in the right place, rotate them, scale them, and locate them in the right place and parent them to the wrist. Now, before we do that, remember in the last lesson, we parented all of these, and these have got a mirror modifier on. So if I come across and rotate, if I parent this to the wrong side, now if we just hide the mirror, let's give you a bit of a clue. Okay, if I parent this over here to the wrist that's over here, when I rotate this, the hand's going to come around. So if I was to just bring back all the mirrors, the mesh with the origins over here, these are our mesh, our original meshes that we've been deforming, shaping, and blocking out. This mesh, so in relation to the mirror, this mesh over here, you can see over here I can adjust and modify the mesh. This is the modifier at work, okay? Why have I mentioned that? Well, if I bring the hand up here, scale it down, I know it's in the wrong direction for now, but if I was just to put that here, like so, and then click that one and press Control P to parent and then keep transform, firstly, you'll see this line here. So this line dictates the mesh that I selected, which is now the child, and it shows you where the parent is. And in this case, it's the original mesh. Even though I've got a mirror on and I selected this part of the mirror, Blender has worked out that I must have meant where the origin is, which is over here. So if I now select this wrist and press R to rotate, you'll notice what happens. And that's not what we want. So I'm going to come to the palm. I've made a mistake here, and you can undo parenting by pressing Alt and P and clear and keep transform. So clear parent, clear and keep transform. And you'll notice that that dotted line has disappeared. So if I bring the hand now over here and select, even if I select over this one and then press Control and P and keep transform. Okay, so we've just parented this gigantic hand to the wrist. If I click away and then click on the wrist itself and now rotate, you'll notice it's acting how we want it to. And I can now come in, scale this hand down and locate it and position it where we want to. Now, to scale the hand, there is a nice little handy tip, and if we just move it up here, it doesn't matter that it's parented, and just place it next to the head. We'll do it this side, might be a bit easier. A hand from base to fingertip is roughly the same size or same length as a face. So we can just scale the hand so it's roughly the same size. I can even bring it here, go into wireframe, and we can just make sure that that's roughly the same scale. And that looks good. So now we've got the right scale. So we're going to have a bit of an issue here. You might have noticed that the hand that I have modeled is if we look at the reference, okay, it's the left hand. This is the left hand top view. If I just hide that reference, come back. However, I've just mentioned how we're going to want to bring it over to the character's right side. So how do we mitigate that? How do we get around this? Because if I bring it over here, and then it's already parented and rotate this wrist, it's acting correct. However, if I now try to position this hand correctly, you'll notice I can't really, the thumb's in the wrong place. Our thumb's not on the back of our hands. So I'm undo that rotation. So I'm going to want to bring it over here. We're going to want to just rotate it. And one way we can get about this is we can apply all of these mesh pieces, separate them into individual parts, and reparent the left and the right arm separately. So I'll quickly do that now. So I'm just going to bring that down. I'm going to Alt and P to clear the parent and keep the transform. And what I mean by that is we're going to we'll start at the joint. We're going to apply the mirror. We're going to go into edit mode, press A to select everything, and press P by loose parts. Okay, and we're going to do that for everything here, so we can select all of these. So we're going to want to firstly apply the mirror modifiers. We can do it quickly with everything selected by right clicking with all of those selected and pressing convert to mesh, and that will just apply all of the mirror modifiers for all of these parts. I then want to select all of those again, go into edit mode, press A to select everything, press P to separate by loose parts, and then back into object mode. Now, you'll notice that it looks correct, but now the origin's here for the wrist, the right character's right wrist, but the left wrist, if I click on that, the origin is over there. So for this side, because it's being created via a mirror modifier, we're just going to want to bring the origin back over here. So if I just right click, set origin, center of mass. Right click, set origin, center of mass. Now these are going to be parented still, so we'll have to unparent them in a second. And I'm just setting the origin of all of these to the center of mass. I'm going to select from the shoulder down to the wrist again on the character's left side. Alt and P, clear parent, clear and keep transform, and you'll notice that that parent's now gone. And we can just position the hand correctly now. So this is still not had its transforms applied. So I am going to just rotate this on its local Y in my case. Now you can have the palm facing us, or you can have the palm slightly sideways. And if I bring the references back, like so, that's how we're going to want to do it roughly. If you look at the reference, so looks like I've collected this one as well. We don't want that. So I'm just going to hide that. Let's position our hand. So rotating on the local axis, like so. Let's position it roughly here. That'll do for now. We can bend the fingers if we want to, just to add a bit more of a natural look, but that's something you can do in your own time. And now we're going to want to parent the palm to the wrist, Control P. We've done this loads of times now. Set parent to object, keep transform. This one to this one, Shift and R. This one to this one, Shift and R. What's happened there? So this reference has been parented by accident. Let's just move it back to where it was first. Clear the parent, and let's hide it so I don't do that again. So the wrist has the hand as a child, the arm has the wrist as a child, the shoulder has the lower arm as a child. There we go, that's where we're up to. So elbow to the upper arm, keep transform, to the shoulder, keep transform. And now, we'll check that this one's still good. So that one's still got its parents and its children, as does this one now. And now we have a hand. The last thing I think to do is just to mirror this across over there. So let's select all of these bits, all these gubbins if you're an orc fan. You can box select as well. Looks like everything's selected. Let's just select this one. I'm going to keep the subdivision surface modifier, come to add modifiers and generate, and then come down to mirror. I am going to need to mirror it around an object because all the origins are over here, so mirroring around its own origin isn't going to work. So I'm just going to click the pipette. I'll use something within the center because we know it's on the center line, such as the pelvis or the torso. And you'll notice that because the active object is the palm, that's the one that's added a mirror to it. But we did select everything. See if you can remember how to select linked and then apply copy modifiers. So see if you can do that now. Okay, so Control and L to link data or link or transfer data. Come down to copy modifiers and look at that. So look at that. So our cylinders with a subdivision surface have gone strange. I'm quite glad that this has happened because you can see here we've got this really sharp, jagged edge on our cylinders. The reason that this happened, okay, if you look at that, it's horrible, is because of this n-gon at the end of cylinders, just here and here. If I just turn off the sub D by pressing real time, so these n-gons are causing us the issue because we've got all of these different edges. We haven't got any geometry within here. So there's a couple of ways that you could fix this. You could inset all the way down, like so, and then maybe extrude and scale to hide. And let's see what that looks like. But still got it just in there. In our case, we're blocking out. We don't really need a subdivision surface on the cylinders. So if I just undo that, come out of focus view, and I'm just going to go ahead, a little bit of a happy mistake, but it let me showcase to you why n-gons are so horrible. Blender does not like n-gons. No one likes n-gons. We all hate n-gons, okay? There we go. So I did just one with all of them selected, and then with that one deleted, I could press Control and L, copy modifiers, and because this one only had a mirror, it removed the subdivision surface, and you can see it's done it that side too. And that looks a lot better. Don't worry about the corner just here being a little bit off. This will all become happy once we have started sculpting. So let's just select everything here, right click and convert to mesh. So what we're going to want to do is bring all of these origins over to this side, but we want to separate everything. So if I go into edit mode, select everything by pressing A. Okay, so everything is now selected. Let's press P for separate and by loose parts, and then go back into object mode. And now if I select all of these, they are separate to all of these. And now with all of those selected, right click, set origin to center of mass volume. We've got some weirdness going on here with all of our different parenting. So let's just select all of the hand again, of this side, sorry. Alt and P, clear transform, clear all of them. Okay, and I'm just going to have to reparent everything here in situ. You can do that now, I've shown you enough. So by the time you come back to the next lesson, all of this will be attached to the wrist. Okay, so just do one just to remind you. Control and P, object, keep transform. And then use repeat, just to make our life a bit easier. So now if I rotate the wrist, yep, those are right. And we're going to do that for all the fingers, all the thumbs of both sides to each relevant hand. So get yourself away. That can be your end of lesson challenge. Fix that happy little mistake. Make sure your hands are their own objects. They are separate. They have their own origins and they are all completely parented to the palm, all the fingers and the thumbs. And then the palm is attached to the wrist. And as I was just saying there, the reason we're doing all this parenting is that when we come up to the sculpting part, if I can just open PureRef, if I just come over here to statues, okay, you can go away and do this as well, collect some nice statue references. This is what we're going to do. We're going to position our character and then we're going to focus on different areas. So you can see a lot of this focus is torsos, and we're going to move and manipulate our character to be in a position, and we're going to try and copy a few statues. And what this will do is it will just really help us understand anatomy before we come and add it to our complete character who's going to be in an A pose. You might want to put him in a T pose, which is just like that for both arms. So it's up to you, A pose or T pose. And then when we come to sculpting our character, because we've practiced making lots of statues, which we'll do in the next couple of lessons, we'll be absolutely solid and our details will really start to shine forward. So I hope you've had fun blocking out the character. Some people find this quite boring. I love it because it starts off our journey towards making a cool character. And the better you block out, the easier your sculpting is going to be. If you just started with a cube and that was it, and you wanted to make a character, you can imagine there's going to be a lot of extruding and guesswork. But here we know that our anatomy is correct. So thank you for joining me in this lesson. I look forward to the next lesson where we start to get really deep dive into the sculpting and anatomy part of character creation. So thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next lesson.